Hey guys, I'm really excited about today's podcast episode. I've got Jeremy Evans on the show, and he's the founder of the world's first peer support marketplace. And he's got an interesting slant. I talked with him backstage. We're going to talk about marketing, digital marketing, internet marketing. He's actually got a really interesting story how he pivoted earlier in his career smartly, and we'll talk all about that. So, Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I've done a lot of things. It's been it's been quite the journey. I mean, the very first business I started was actually freeze dried kombucha. Still a great
Mhm.
idea, but in better hands than mine. At least when I was something like 20. And
Yeah.
I was describing how I was pre med. I was working in an emergency room. I spent probably about 4 or 5 years doing that. I was a medical scribe. So that's where you see all the stuff, but you don't get the blood on your hands. And then I said, "Hey, I want to start this business. I want to start that business." I had no clue I was doing. My degree in neuroscience did not prepare me. And the School of Hard Knocks left me something like 40, $50,000 in debt. No clue what I was doing. And that's when I turned to marketing and website development design. So worked my way out of that hole. I realized that there's still a tremendous gap in online marketing for for small, medium businesses and all the way up to enterprise to actually make money, to actually have marketing be a return on your investment, which is strangely foreign to a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And finally, my most recent venture, a little mental health startup that I'm doing, is called Atlas Talk. It's to get peer counselors to be able to talk for folks to lower the cost of mental health counseling services, not professional counseling, but peer counseling, all the way down to something like 5, 15, $20 an hour. People set their own prices. I have hundreds of active monthly users, and it is nuts how specific and the kind of how vulnerable folks can get putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
So I can cover any of the above. I was telling Chris about how desperately so many physicians want to get out of the system when it's this beat up and this nonsensical. And yeah,
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, we were talking about it. And I think, I mean, doctors they're the smartest people. And then, I just got back from speaking at a conference. They're the smartest people, but they're not the best at business. So, that's why I started this podcast, get business, get inspired, food for thought, get you thinking, and get you on the road. So, kind of what's really interesting is that, and also the healthcare system is just is complete mess, like just entrenched interest, corruption, fraud, regulation. It's hard to take care of patients in this sort of system. So, um, one thing you talk about is this idea where you basically um, this self discovery, and then you kind of went on these different journeys, starting companies, starting business, marketing. So, kind of tell how you evolved from, your early days to now to what you're doing.
yeah. So I had a very and I actually I do think there I can easily make this relevant to the struggling, not so business savvy physicians out there. Early on, I had a deep desire to help people. I think there are very few physicians that don't have a desire to help people. You don't put your nose to the grindstone until you got no nose left. If you don't want to be helping people and making money while doing it, right? Have a comfortable, secure lifestyle and know that you're a valuable member of the community, that you've impacted people's lives. Now, I wanted to help poor people. I thought, wow, poor people need the most help. And again, I was working in an ER. You can meet quite a few poor people in an ER. I think that I had a certain sanctity and a stereotype in my head that came from being rather sheltered as a child. My father was a hospital CEO, so I thought he was clearly just the top of the food chain, which is, by the way, not true. Even the poor hospital CEOs have to answer to a lot of people. But I had this idealistic view that I was going to help people because obviously giving people free stuff is the solution to all the world's problems. If just more people had more free stuff, then nobody would suffer and everybody'd be super cool. And we'd all just be hanging out eating cake all day. Um, it doesn't work. Some of the ER physicians out there know what I'm talking about. That really doesn't work. A lot of people get a lot of free services in the ER. I also worked at poor clinics, volunteered at some free clinics in Florida. So I had a real crisis of faith. How am I going to help anybody? You know, I couldn't even see doing it as a doctor, to be honest. The older physicians were so disgruntled and so upset by the fact that they were getting flowcharts from the doctor group. Right, their group was saying, "Hey, you're going to do this, and if you don't, that's a malpractice vulnerability for us, and you're done. This is from Medicare, Medicaid, or whatever, and do not deviate." And the younger doctors were just working 60 hours a week in crippling debt, right? Trying to be married and have kids. None of
Yeah.
them seemed like they had a deep, fulfilling career. So,
Mm.
and here's where we go weird. And let's point out my hair. It's a little bun right now. I am in Boulder, Colorado. These are my hippie credentials. All right. So, I my wife lost her job. We needed to move, and I was either going to go to Lecom in Florida,
Mm.
or I was going to move with her, and she's my wife now, so I moved with her. Right? But while she was out interviewing for jobs as a ballerina, which by the way is not the easiest thing in the world, I spent a week fasting and praying and weeping like a little baby, saying, "What am I actually going to do? Did I really just take the road of comfort and security, um, dedicating the past 6 years of my life to being pre med?" And I concluded, hey, when people agree and consent to help each other, when they say, "Hey, I want to make a deal," both people are better off. And it took me so much to get to that point, right? I think some people can arrive there intellectually. For me, again, I had to pray for some reason. I don't even know who I was praying to. At the time, I was completely broken and defeated.
Mm.
In 10 years, aspiring to be a doctor. Now I pivoted a little bit. I want to be a psychiatrist. I want to be, direct primary, whatever, right? And for me to say, okay, I need people to directly engage and consent and say, yes, this is what I want. I had a couple of models for that in healthcare, but the reality is doctors don't know their own prices, right? If you try to go to a physician, I have a couple kids upstairs, right? If you try to say, how much does this kid cost me? Uh, how much does it cost to get it out of my wife, get all the right shots and wrap it in a blanket and take it home, right?
Mm.
You are not only going uphill, you're going uphill on a slip and slide. It's really, really tough to squeeze the price out of the hospital itself, much less the physicians. Nobody
Mhm.
knows. It's hardly a business anymore. It's
Mhm.
become something of a black box where everyone, I don't even think people have faith. I think a lot of people have lost faith in the system. It's absolutely, it's really, really tough to feel good about the economic transaction of modern medicine in the US, even if you do an amazing job as a physician. So that's when I decided that my best job would be to help people at scale through marketing. If I believed in capitalism, if I believed that people acting in their own self interest with their own voluntary will was the right path forward, which by the way was a complete 180 prior to fasting for a week in a hot Florida attic. If I thought that that was the right path, then marketing was the way to help the most people achieve that as quickly as possible. So, ultimately, kind of the wrap here, that in and of itself is just one component of owning a business. I'm now also a manager. I have 6 full-time staff. Um, Trying to square even 6 people and make sure that everybody's happy and healthy. That could easily be a full-time job. I have to operationally estimate things. I have to run my own legal, my own finance, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of components to being a business. Um, but I think one of the principal gaps for the folks that are merely technicians, and I mean that in that Michael Gerber E Myth sense, when you're a doctor and here's the diagnosis, here's your treatments, in and out of the system, and maybe you're really good, you even have a great bedside manner, you make everyone feel great about the whole process, but you're not used to all these other components. So many people get uncomfortable saying that, hey, I'm actually selling my time as a service. That's fundamentally what's going on. when you're selling it, the reality is to either your doctor group or the hospital or the practice that you're in, you're not even selling it to the patients. Um, so there's a message of hope that the more that you realize what you're doing and how it fits into the broader economy, I think the more that you can take the reins back of your own life and realize how your time and money are interconnected. And through that, gain the power to pivot, to become a longevity doctor, to do replacement, or go into some kind of supplements that you believe in, convert to direct primary care, which is something I was talking about prior to the show. I've helped a couple people do that, build up their clientele from scratch without conflicting with their prior jobs, or to completely leave medicine entirely and do whatever else you want. Just
Yeah,
get comfortable.
interesting. Yeah, which brings us to the work that you're doing with Atlas Talk, and then you talk about if it can do what Uber did for getting in the car with a stranger or Airbnb. Um, kind of talk about how Atlas Talk is filling this niche.
Yeah, I still believe that my primary goal in life is to be of service to folks. I don't think you have to be that. I'm not actually judgy about it. It sounds kind of pretentious, and it is clearly there's something wrong with me, right? But I really want. I see the power of technology to transform society,
Mm.
and that's really my gist there. Is my mother still thinks that Craigslist is just a place for serial killers. It's for serial killers to get together to sell each other knickknacks and hand-me-downs, and then I guess the serial kill each other. There's almost none of them left. The math doesn't add up if everyone's killing each other on Craigslist, but it there, it there's a real barrier to trusting strangers, and I think this is reflective of one's own sense of humanity, and that's either misanthropy. There's my $5 word, or whatever the opposite of that is. And I genuinely believe that people are doing the best they can. I'm doing the best I can. I can look and I can see the good in others, and I can have the faith now in my generation. I have no issue getting into an Uber. I I have no thought in my mind that this person is going to try to kill me or drive me out some back alleyway. I know that they're just trying to make a living. They may or may not be a good driver. They may or not have a little water bottle in the back seat. Maybe the whole thing smells like cigarettes. Whatever. They're doing the best they can and it's good enough to get me where I need to go. Airbnb, even more intimate. And what I'm trying to do is take this to the realm of what is traditionally reserved for therapy, formal therapy, to talk about personal problems. I think that there's a huge underserved demand on both ends. One, for therapy to be affordable, for it to be related, for the therapist to be able to relate to the client without some kind of high horse or ivory tower. To say, hey, I was an alcoholic. I got over it. And here's how. Here's what that looks like. Here's a model for you to go off. The other end of this is there are a ton of people that will love to make even a little bit of a side income talking to other people about the things that matter most, right? That's right now, you have to be very, very qualified. I'm sorry, hopefully my audio doesn't peak. But the 4-year degree, somewhere between 2 and 4 years of a master to PhD to PsyD to whatever, to be able to talk to people about sometimes very trivial complaints. And I think that this has a couple of effects. One is the people who have small problems, maybe they need conflict resolution in their marriage. I think we could all probably use some better conflict resolution in our marriage. Um, are they going to rise to the level of saying, right, I need to go to a therapist so that I can learn some new coping skills and some new adaptive mechanisms to be able to negotiate with my wife? Probably not. They're going to wait till it's explosive. They're going to wait till it's emergency healthcare, right? And at that point, your odds of doing anything are very low. Your odds of success are plummeting. Um, so, one, I want to kind of bridge that gap. We can call it preventative, we can call it preemptive, whatever, something to that effect. Uh, Two, if you were to go with, hey, I'm actually doing pretty well, but my wife, I think she's just really stressed out, and I don't know how I can be more supportive of her. therapist's going to look at you like you're a nutcase. Or alternatively, they'll be relieved because you're the easiest person that they've had all week, right? Uh, I want to have kind of an intermediate level. I want people to be able to say, I have no thoughts of self harm. I'm not clinically depressed. I don't need to see a psychiatrist. I probably don't need to see a clinical psychologist. I'm not even sure if I really need CBT or rational emotive behavioral therapy or whatever. I think maybe what I want is just to talk about a problem with a complete third party stranger who is not going to judge me and is not connected to the problem in some way. It's hard to talk about your wife to your wife in a way that uh, we all know what I'm saying. Sometimes we need to talk to it an indifferent third party to really make that happen. So it's a marketplace. It's the ability for people on both ends. Hey, I want to be an outlet for people to vent, to talk to. The diversity of the listings is really amazing. So I made it under the premise that okay, that I'm an alcoholic. Let's talk about being an alcoholic. Or I was an alcoholic. Let's talk about being an alcoholic. Or I got divorced and I got over it. That's what I thought was going to happen. The reality is there are diverse modalities of therapy that are currently trending that I had never even heard of. Um, Somebody's offering body doubling for ADHD. I still really don't know what that is. I don't know if it's effective. I think everyone should be entitled to try whatever they would like. I mean, ultimately, this is talking to somebody else about your problem in a way that you think is going to help you. That's enough for me. That's the mutual transaction. That's opting in. That sounds kind of cool, whatever that is, body doubling. Another one that really strikes me is connecting through role playing games. Brilliant. All right. So, this is somebody who's going to play Dungeons and Dragons with you. Now, I've never even played Dungeons and Dragons, but I know it takes hours. I know that you have some deep conversations potentially during that time. Um, I think if my brother and I have to have a deep talk, first thing we do is we try to boot up Factorio, spend a couple hours shooting bugs with laser turrets or whatever, and then during that time, maybe the harder stuff to talk about comes out. So people are people are using their own experience and the incredible beauty and diversity of that is reflected in the offering. And my hope is that it will transform transform our society just at 1 to 2% more compassionate, so that we can look at each other and see people some of the time, not all the time, but just a little bit more, and realize people are trying the best they can. The person in front of you at the grocery store with 150 items in the express checkout is, they're going home to sick parents and hurting kids, whatever it is. Have a little bit more compassion. Maybe we can all just calm down and have a good time of life. You only get one, I think. Uh, Edging my bets there. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm running my mouth here.
No,
Go ahead.
really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, we just need more compassion. I think, or this kind of, everybody needs to just chill out, relax, think big picture. How can people, check you out? Any success stories? How do they follow you, find you on socials, etc.?
Yeah. Um, I do an awful job with social media because I hate it. I need to hire somebody for it, and I will. But I really don't even touch social media. My agency, you can visit Atlas Talked. Um, you can visit Thrice Agency if you're interested in marketing services. I really, really encourage you guys to check out Atlas Talked. I think it's a cool, fun offering. I have sunk so much of my own money into it. Eventually we will get some capitalization that will push advertising even further. There's still hundreds of listings on the site right now and hundreds of people participating every day. I think it's a really, really cool thing to be an early adopter of. And hop on over there, check it out. See if it's the right fit for you. See if maybe it's better for somebody else that you know, somebody who's in between therapy and just being completely zen content for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. And for all the audience out there, let's thank Jeremy for, really interesting individual, interesting thoughts. Check out his company, Atlas Talk, as well as Thrice Agency. And with that, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Chris.